Welcome to the Domestic Supply Chain Summit. I'm Thomas Wasson, and in this fireside chat, we're going to be talking about how railroads are leveraging technology and investments to fuel growth. There's a lot of opportunity, and we're super excited to have the folks from Union Pacific coming on to join us and talk about what they've been working on. And so let's dive right in here. We're going to be excited to welcome Eric Gehringer. He's Executive Vice President of Operations at Union Pacific. He's going to be talking to us. And Eric, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you, Thomas, very much. So here at Union Pacific, I lead our operating department, all 29,000 people that day in and day out work to safely deliver the products that we transport for our customers.
All right, Eric, so let's dive right in here. For folks who are not as familiar, rail is a huge part of the domestic supply chain. Tell us a little bit about how they fit in the whole scheme for folks who are not as familiar with how important their role is.
Absolutely. Here at Union Pacific, our strategy is safety, service, and operational excellence, and that's all about growth. In fact, as individuals, we can look around and about 40% of anything that you see at any given time came on a railroad at some point. Now, as you think about Union Pacific, we play an integral part of the supply chain. Nearly everything that we transports across the United States gives you an indication of the economic conditions across the United States. When you think about the diversity of the things that we transport, from beer and grain and fertilizers to autos and steel, we've existed for more than 162 years as an integral part of the supply chain network. And that's still true today. And as we grow, it become even more true.
And having such a big hat in the organization, especially operationally, when you're thinking of supply chain, I know making sure the trains are running, making sure we're making deliveries, but when we're looking at avenues of growth, what are some of the big tentpole things you're looking at in terms of levers when we're saying, hey, we're looking to grow? What are almost the first things that come to mind as you're looking for this path?
So first and foremost is agility. As you think about the economy and the world around us, it continually changes. So we're working consistently and constantly with our customers to understand what do they need. And then we look to find solutions. And in our world, not every solution fixes every problem. So we spend a lot of time trying to understand at a very fundamental level what our customers need us to do. Some customers want to have a service product that prioritizes speed, while other customers want different things. So day in and day out, that's what we do. We work to be able to grow with our customers by understanding what are the problems that we can solve for them, and then working hand in hand to solve them.
And thinking of growth, having locations, physical locations, starting services in new spots, is there any kind of when you're looking at offering some of these new things, let's sound in like a smaller town or something, is there any situation that makes it very attractive, or is this like a years-long process where I'm thinking I want to expand this node out? When we're looking at that agility, talk to us about how some of this looks like in terms of timelines and what you all are looking at is in what's that just right if this were Goldilocks?
Working with our customers for growth is all about speed. In fact, if you look on average, Union Pacific invests $10 million per day when we think about growth. Now that takes many different forms, certainly takes the form of technology, but also takes the form of infrastructure. So as we're working to partner with customers for their growth inside the supply chain, it's really about many different projects. We've built a brand new intermodal terminal in the Twin Cities. We are building a brand new intermodal terminal in Kansas City, building a brand new intermodal terminal in LA. And that's on top of the nearly 1 million additional lifts of capacity we've invested in the last 5 years. So we're investing every single day, Thomas, to ensure that we have the capacity to handle the growth that our customers are bringing to the railroad.
And y'all have some really cool technology. When you're building these new terminals compared to the old days, you need things like cranes, you've got the railhead, you've got the yards. Is there any kind of new technology things that are coming up that folks should pay attention to that railroads are starting to utilize? One thing I've heard is electric cranes, which sounds super, super cool. What are some of the things that Union Pacific is working on that they're using as they're building these new spots? They're also deploying the cutting edge tech.
So it's a very diverse group of technology initiatives, and they span the whole operation. To your point, they can start with things like cranes and how we actually operate those inside of our intermodal terminals with further and further automation. But also, we have 273 terminals. So a big part of our investment portfolio on the technology side is about ensuring that we continue to make the supply chain even more fluid and even more efficient. So that really focuses on how do we move the rail cars through our terminals faster? So for example, we have Mobile NX that actually automates a big portion of how the cars are handled in our terminals. The net result for our customers is that we take days off of their schedule, generating more capacity inside the supply chain. We also have many tools that we've invested in and continue to invest in for our customers from an interface perspective. We have customer vision that gives better than ever before greater transparency into our customers' information in real time about their shipments. And then finally, as you think about supply chain and fluidity within the supply chain, you want to constantly be minimizing variability. So we have technologies like Precision Train Builder that look at every single train before it departs any terminal and optimizes its configuration to promote the maximum amount of reliance coming in the form of reduced variability.
Well, that's gotta be it's like a delicate operational dance because I can imagine that you have a train car with a certain length to it heading to a terminal, but you also may have another one getting staged. So is that where the technology comes in, where you've got to know operationally how quick can it unload? What's like the optimum length of train? If it's too long, does that mean I back up the other line of train? Is that some of the stuff where this technology is giving us more visibility, where in the past it was more art, less science?
You're absolutely right, Thomas. It's visibility, and then it's also continued improvement in our decision making. So if you think about just on our railroad, 16 million data points come in every single day about our trains. This is the technology that digests that in a very meaningful way, takes into account all the different variables that occur on the railroad, and provide the optimum decision when you're balancing, to your point, an entire network of more than 600 freight trains every single day.
And do we see one of the cool things in the freight side that I hear about is AI and maintenance technology, AI leveraging Internet of Things to figure it out. Does that mean we'll have the smart trains where the train can now tell you, "Hey, boss, I'm not feeling too good. I need a checkup," or something like that? When you're looking at these large locomotives and then plan around some of the maintenance cycles.
I love the picture you created there. And believe it or not, that exists today. Whether you're considering the locomotives or you're considering rail cars, that those assets are already telling us things every single day in real time. So, for example, in our locomotives, we can see the temperature, we can see how much power they're drawing, we can see all the way down to how the operator is operating the train. And what's wonderful about that is whether you're talking about safety, service, or operational excellence, it's providing you the information you need to make the right decisions to promote all three, which fundamentally promote growth on the Union Pacific.
So there's the ability. It's kind of like with trucking, where if you have a train operator, I'm assuming there's a sweet spot when you're taking turns. Somebody, you don't want to drive the train too fast. And so now there's the ability to be proactive and kind of have a unified approach, making sure, hey, look, I've seen you've been driving this train, but now with the technology, we could save some fuel. We could be a little more conscious by adjusting some of the speeds, or are these things like on autopilot nowadays, and then you got to worry about takeoff and landing.
Well, you certainly have the human component in every train that we operate, and that'll be incredibly important as we continue forward. But to your point, all of that technology, and it is a wide suite of technologies, it's all meant to help augment the decision making of the people that are actually operating the trains, our dispatchers that are controlling the trains, etc. And what's wonderful about ours is, back to your point about fuel conservation. A big part of our future growth, and it's even happening today, is our competitiveness when it comes to emissions. Trains by themselves are 75% less emissions than trucks. And so we're leveraging that technology also to ensure that we're satisfying today's customers and tomorrow's customers, and being able to provide them a green option as they look for transporting freight within the supply chain.
That's one of the cool facts. You get like a mile-long train, but because of the economies of scale, the per unit carbon cost compared to one 40-foot container on a truck is like a small fraction. When you're looking at that, is it more of some of these locomotives are like 50, 60 years old? Is it teaching an old dog new tricks with better fuel? Or is there actually the design and implementation of saying, as I'm phasing out portions of my locomotive end of life cycle, are we seeing some really cool developments on making more energy efficient locomotives or alternative fuel sources altogether?
The answer to that is absolutely true. And it comes to a couple different forms, and you mentioned them, at least certainly the most important ones. First and foremost, we've been modernizing our locomotives for decades. As you look over the last 5 years, we made one of the largest investments ever of nearly $1.4 billion to modernize 600 locomotives. Now, when I say modernize, what does that really mean? It's taking it all the way down to the wheels and building it all the way back up with the best technology that works to accomplish many different goals, from the fuel conservation you were mentioning to the reliability that promotes consistent, reliable service. At the same time, we are looking at alternative fuels, and we have them on the railroad today, not only as a consumer, that being that we use them, but we're also providing many opportunities for growth on our railroad as other people continue to want to invest and utilize more renewable energy. And the last thing I'd mention on it, because it's incredibly important for the future, we have our first hybrid locomotive that's a combination of diesel as well as electric. We've had that now for 4 months down in Little Rock, and we're putting it through its paces. We're very optimistic about how that will not create, but further improve our ability to offer green options to our customers today and in the future.
And for these hybrid locomotives, I'm curious about how they work. It's been explained on the trucking side where sometimes you can get a hybrid electric drivetrain, which kind of when you get up to speed, it gives it some juice. And so it takes less on the engine. And then others have described it as I'm going to have a very much an electric complete drivetrain. With on the locomotive side, what's the super cool tech right now? Or are we eventually getting to a point where, I mean, these things may just have the juice to go fully battery electric?
Sure. So from the outside, what you would see is a locomotive as it normally looks, and then you have what we call a slug, which is effectively a half of a locomotive. That half of the locomotive houses all of those batteries. The way these locomotives work is that yes, we can rely on the diesel, but we're relying on the batteries instead. What's wonderful about this particular configuration is, to your point, we can use it in different periods of its operation. We could use it to start the locomotive. We can use it to actually keep track speed, but we can also think about it in a different way. Whereas the locomotive is going down the track, it's also charging those batteries as well through its tractive effort. So it's a really perfect solution for the railroads because we get the benefit on both sides.
I've heard from back on Sirius XM, there was a guy called the Railman, and he told me as a listener, he was a former locomotive driver, and he said they can get pretty fast. And so when you're moving down these hills across the country, I mean, is that where this electric comes in and the regenerative, does it have like the equivalent of a train regenerative braking? So then I'm just charging it back up on the downslope, and I can help deploy that going back on the upslope, like a give and take.
100%, Thomas. It does have regenerative charging and it works just as you described it.
Those are so cool. That's the stuff I get really excited about because I think that a lot of people think in terms of EV and alternative energies. It, saving energy, reducing emissions is the same as operational goals because I don't have to pay for as much fuel, and then maybe it's a little easier in certain parts of repairs. When we're looking at, I think the railhead, we got a little bit of time left. Rail and intermodal are like peanut butter and jelly; they go together. You're talking about some of the technology on helping with precision scheduling with the rail. Is there technology for the little drayage carriers or the railhead carriers that are helping move them? So you kind of not only are the more efficient hauling, but then these are coming off the train in a much more less chaotic manner.
Absolutely. And I'll highlight two of them, although it is a portfolio of many more than two. First and foremost, for our customers and investing in their success, we need to ensure that our customers can get into and out of our ramps in the most efficient manner. So we're nearly complete with all of our ramps with precision gate technology. And what this really allows a customer to do is to pre-register that they're coming into the ramp, provide all the appropriate information that's necessary, and they never have to stop at the gate. Compare that to just a handful of years ago where they may have had to stop for a minute or maybe even 10 minutes. We've taken that out both on the inside, coming in and coming out of the ramp. The other one that I would highlight is our autonomous cranes that we actually have in one of our terminals in Chicago. This is on the cutting edge of how to think about, to your point, even more autonomous, but more efficient, quicker handling of those boxes. Because as we continue to get more and more quick in the way that we do that work, we're building capacity into our supply chain, which also translates into capacity in the broader supply chain domestically.
And looking ahead here, when we're talking about this deployment of technology and growth, if there is one big thing in the overall supply chain, like 30,000 feet up, what should we consider from a rail perspective as, what are we kind of looking at? Some people have told me nearshoring, some have said supply chains from north and south. Like, what, in your opinion, is kind of the thing that if we need to put something on their radar, which we keep in the back of our mind as we move through this year?
Well, you certainly hit it with the nearshoring, whether you're talking about coming north or south. But I'm going to pick one also that's not so obvious. As we think about supply chain and the broad supply chain, I still think as an industry and as a country, we've got opportunities on the visibility of shipments. I think the more that we can improve visibility of shipments and giving more advanced notice about what's coming, what it is, where it needs to go, and when it needs to get there, and I mean across all forms of freight transportation, I think there's a real value unlock there that we're starting to unlock as a collective whole, but I think there's more opportunities there.
Perfect. Eric, really appreciate you spending some time with us to chat about this. If folks want to check out Union Pacific, learn more about what y'all are working on, what's the best way to find out?
www.up.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time. That's going to be a wrap for this Fireside Chat. But don't worry, folks, we have a lot more content coming up. Stay tuned.